any right triangle, the sine of an angle x is the length of the opposite cathode divided by the length of the hypotenuse. In a formula, it is written as sine without an e, often remembered as SOH, meaning sine is opposite over hypotenuse. The formula is sin x equals opposite cathode over hypotenuse. Now we're going to do an example on how to use sine. If we look at the general definition, we see that there are three variables: the measure of the angle x and the length of the two sides, the opposite cathode and the hypotenuse. So if we have any two of them, we can find the third. Use the sine function to find x in this triangle. We know the angle the cable makes with the seabed is 39 degrees, and the cable's length is 30 meters. And we want to know x, which is the distance down. Start with sine of 39 degrees, which is equal to opposite cathode over hypotenuse. Sine of 39 degrees equals x over 30. Swap the sides, and you have x over 30 equals sine of 39. Use a calculator to find sine of 39, which is 0.6293, and then multiply both sides by 30. X equals 0.6293 times 30, and x equals 18.88 to 2 decimal places. The depth of x is 18.88 meters.
To make the graph, we need to calculate the sine for different angles. Then put those points on the graph and then join the dots. Whatever number a is multiplied on the trigonometric function gives you the amplitude, that is, the tallness or shortness of the graph. In this case, that amplitude was 3. What if the amplitude of y of t equals 0.5 cosine of t? For this function, the value of the amplitude multiplier a is given by 0.5, so the function will have an amplitude of 0.5 that equals a half. What if the amplitude of y of x equals minus 2 cosine of x? For this function, the value of the amplitude multiplier a is minus 2, so the amplitude is 2. And the graph would also be flipped upside down because of the minus sign.
So, for inverse sine, we're going to use the same example as in sine, just we have different variables this time. So, the distance down is 18.88 as in the same example. The cable's length is 30 meters, and we want to know the angle A. Start with sin of A opposite over hypotenuse. Sin of A equals 18.88 over 30. Calculate 18.88 over 30 sin of A, and that gives you 39.
Technically, the amplitude is the absolute value of whatever is multiplied on the trigonometric function. The amplitude just says how tall or short the curve is. It's up to you to notice whether there's a minus on that multiplier, and thus whether or not the function is in the usual orientation or upside down. Wherever value b is multiplied on the variable inside of the function, you use this value to find the period of the trigonometric function, according to this formula. Omega equals the regular period over b. For sine functions, the regular period is 2 pi. The hypotenuse of a right triangle is the side opposite to the right angle, and it is the longest side. The other two sides are called the opposite and adjacent sides. These sides are labeled in relation to the angle. The opposite side is across from a given angle, and the adjacent side is the non-hypotenuse side that is next to a given angle.
Cosecant is the reciprocal of sine. A reciprocal is simply 1 over a number, and a sine is equal to opposite over hypotenuse. Cosecant is hypotenuse over opposite. The cosecant function always produces a value bigger than 1.
First, make a quick sketch of the sine function, its reciprocal. With the sine sketch in place, you can draw the asymptotes of the cosecant function through the x-intercepts. of the sine function. You can also use the maximum and minimum values of the sine function to locate the minimum and maximum points, also known as turning points of the cosecant function.